So, Dr. Mona Minkara, thank you for speaking to me for the VICTA Virtual Science Fair for visually impaired young people. As part of our science fair, we want to showcase a wide range of STEM professionals and STEM careers available and talk to lots of different people in the sector. You yourself have forged quite a successful career, so I'm excited to find out a little bit more about what you do, and at the same time, find out a bit more about how you've been tackling prejudices related to your own vision impairment and what you've been doing to support other young people with a vision impairment into STEM. So I suppose without further ado, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. So my name is Mona Minkara, and I am a professor of bioengineering. I do research and I teach at Northeastern University. Yeah, like I specifically actually focus. I specifically focus on studying the air-water interface in the lungs, and so it's been very relevant recently in the past year.
Very topical.
The pandemic. Yeah, it was just kind of fortuitous in a really odd way. But I computationally model what occurs on an atomic level at the air-water interface in the lungs.
So for a layman, could you explain a little bit more about what that involves?
Yes, sure, of course. This is like a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So one of the biggest areas of research that's kind of come about since the 80s is this idea of computational chemistry, which is what my actual doctorate is in. And that means that I take chemical occurrences or interactions, and using computers, I model what is actually happening. And so you can model everything from, the dynamics of a protein moving to all the way down to how do little water molecules interact with each other? What is the surface tension of water? Things like that. So that's what I do. And there's a lot of different methods to modeling chemical systems. And I basically dabble in a lot of those different methods.
So, and with the end goal of what being in mind, so is it for the advancement of medicine or for?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of different end goals. It's a very good question. So the end goal is to understand better what is happening. So a lot of times, I'll give a very concrete example. Before computational chemistry, if you were going to invent a new drug for a disease, you would try out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different substances, right? And it's very costly, and you'd have to go into the lab and try it out. But now, due to computational chemistry, we can model what could occur and narrow down our, from hundreds of options, maybe down to 10. And then you test those out in the lab. And so you've saved a lot of money. And so modeling obviously comes with a lot of different issues that come with it, right? You have to model, you have to make sure it's really replicating reality. Are we modeling it as accurately as possible? Sometimes when we spend a lot of time making it accurate, then it takes a lot longer to calculate. And so you kind of have to find a balance between accuracy, efficiency, how much does it reflect reality? But at the end of the day, you're doing it on a computer. So you're saving a lot of money, and you're helping to narrow down how much work needs to happen in the actual physical lab. So it's a very important field.
It sounds like there's quite a lot of different components and elements to the work that you do. So what would not an average day, because it sounds like there's so many different parts to it, but maybe perhaps an average week maybe of
what, or average month.
Sort of the process from start to finish maybe, or how does it all fit into sort of the time scale of your working pattern?
Okay, yeah. I mean, one of the main reasons why I am a professor is because I'm definitely the kind of person who likes to do my own thing at my own time, right? So when you become a professor and you're running your own research lab and you basically you get to decide the way your week looks like, your day looks like, your month. And I love a variety of different tasks. So on a weekly basis, I'll do everything from teach a class, meet with students, and meet with my research group, like actually work on research problems, and sit down and read literature and listen to what is out there in the world, what are other scientists doing, and then just sit and think. So I get really to experience a variety of tasks in a week, and that's why I really love my job.
Amazing. And what drew you to the field in the first place? What was the appeal of your role in the first place?
Yeah, so I've always loved science ever since I was a kid. So I was diagnosed with macular degeneration and corneal dystrophy at the age of 7. So I had started losing my eyesight beforehand. I don't really have any functional vision right now. I always was curious about the world. I just wanted to know, how does the world work? And when I was a kid, I don't know if you guys know about this. I mean, you know, me growing up in the United States, I don't know if you guys had this, but I grew up watching Magic School Bus and Bill Nye the Science Guy. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever, especially Magic School Bus. It was like a deep desire of mine for like the Magic School Bus to be a real thing, but it made me curious. And so that stayed with me. And even though I grew up and I was told that being a scientist was impractical and it was going to be difficult, I stubbornly stuck to what I wanted to do, because being passionate about what you do is key in life. It's so important in life. And that's the path it took me. I went down and I ended up becoming a chemist. I got my doctorate in chemistry. And then, you know, yes, I'm a professor of bioengineering, but, you know, my work is a little bit more computational chemistry, but under the bioengineering umbrella, I suppose. And that's where I am today.
And you touched on your vision impairment, and as part of our science fair, we're doing these Q&A videos with a range of professionals, some with a vision impairment like yourself, and some just from a range of different science and STEM backgrounds. On your, just a very quick glance at your website, on your website, you got your tagline, which is "Vision is more than sight." You have a whole section around the blind toolkit. You talk a lot and quite passionately about your own experience growing up, and perhaps you could talk a little bit about what the specialist said to your parents when you found out about your vision impairment, and then kind of everything on your website, your attitude to other young people and the determination to not use that as a barrier, but to overcome that and find alternate routes. It's very inspirational reading what you put on your website. So perhaps you could explain a little bit more about that.
Yes, for sure. I mean, look, for anybody who might be listening right now, we have this life and we better enjoy it to the maximum that we can. And so follow your dream, be passionate about it. You'll find a way. If you really want to, there will be some way. Of course, there are going to be obstacles and it's going to be difficult. And you might realize that you love something else more, and that's completely fine. For me, it's all about a state of mind. When I was a kid, apparently my parents took me to this eye doctor, and he had told my mom at the time that it wouldn't be worth spending a penny on my education. And I always say, like, he's the one who has no sight. I mean, look at where I am now. I don't even know if that man is alive or what happened to him, the eye doctor. I mean, that's just not something that he should have said to my parents. But I think it made my mom determined to make sure that I get the education that I deserve. And now I'm in a position in which not only have I been educated and I continue to learn every day, but I'm educating, right? There's going to be a generation of students that are learning from me. And I'm teaching science. I'm not just teaching I'm teaching a very visual field, as people would say.
Yeah.
I really urge everybody out there to follow their dreams and to recognize that a lot of it is a state of mind. I didn't, until I was an adult, recognize that like my blindness wasn't a weakness. Most of my life growing up, I kind of felt like, okay, I'm blind. I need to run twice as hard to catch up with my peers, to overcome this blindness. And it wasn't until I was invited to become a postdoc in Professor J. Elias Seatman's lab at the University of Minnesota, in which he told me I had a job. I didn't even interview. He just like emailed me and said, Mona, I would want you to be in my lab. And I remember emailing him and saying, why? And I actually set up a meeting with him. And instead of having an interview in which he's asking my qualifications, I was sitting there telling him, You understand I'm blind? You understand I'm slow? You understand I'm this and that? And he was like, yes, but you are blind and you've made it this far. I can see that you problem solve in different ways. And because of that, because you think differently, because you did not have your eyesight, you're going to be able to solve problems that other people cannot.
And I think
He
it's,
saw,
uh,
yeah, he saw my lack of eyesight as an advantage, as a tool. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, it's important to say that these aren't just words that you're saying. You've acted on this, and for anyone following you in your wake, you've on, like I say, on your website, you have this toolkit. Could you tell us a bit more about this toolkit? Because
yeah, sure. So I mean, after that transition with that professor, I mean, I grew a lot as a scientist, but I also changed my mindset, and I started to really sit down and gather what are all the tools that I have used, and so I have a web page called Blind Scientist Tool Page. It's on my website, monaminkara.com. There's a blind scientist section, and I just started to put down everything. How do I do everything? It's out there for people to use. It's, you don't necessarily have to use it the same way, or you might come up with something new for yourself, but I feel like a lot of times we end up reinventing the wheel. I want to see more blind individuals in science. I don't want to be one of the only few. I want that to shift. I think that is a betterment for society, a betterment for the scientific field. Because I have stories, I tell another story about an advantage. One time I found a pattern because I couldn't see in research that I was doing. So check out the Blind Scientist Tools page. And honestly, like, I'm a resource. Like, if people want to pursue a field in science and they don't know how they're going to do it, you can contact me. I have a website, I have an email, you can contact me. Let's change the field. Let's follow your passions. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely, and we will link to all of that on the Science Fair website as well. And as part of that, as well as the toolkit, you've got the curriculum that you're developing. How is that going, and what's the plan with that?
So I have actually developed it. I'm just getting it copyrighted right now, and my plan is to just send it to whomever asks for it when it's copyrighted. It's just a series of lessons, very low cost, simple lessons with items you can find around the house, but that are fully blind accessible. Because I think it's important for kids to start at a young age feeling empowered to do their own science experiments. And we can. I was able to teach, high school students that are blind. I mean, I make everybody wear a blindfold. So even if you have a little bit of vision, you don't get to use it. And I taught them to extract DNA from a strawberry, and they did it. And they were blown away that they were able to do it without using any eyesight. So it's, the goal is to be able to share that curriculum when it's fully done.
And that's what, for schools to use? It could be for home.
The curriculum is for anybody who wants to read it. Honestly, it's for teachers. If students want to implement it for themselves, if people want to work, it's just, it's just a series of lessons that you can try.
Brilliant. Okay, and sort of finally on this side of things, what would be, I mean, you've given lots of advice anyway, but what would be your advice for a young person looking to sort of almost follow in your footsteps, trying to find a career in science and STEM? What would be maybe one or top three things for them to consider or think about?
That will be hard, but it's doable. And if you really love it, pursue it for sure. Because, we're only around once here, so on this planet, so like we should do that. And then be frank. Don't worry about how you're gonna do it. Take life one step at a time. Believe it or not, most people don't even know how they're gonna do things. So why should you? Why should you already have a very detailed plan about every day of your life from now until you get your doctorate or something? I remember the first day of graduate school, not even knowing how to get from my apartment to the university, and thinking, oh my God, like, how am I gonna write a 200-page thesis? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna, like, first day of school, figure out how to get to the university, like one step at a time. And if you approach life like that, it's a little bit less daunting. So take it one step at a time.
Love it. Thank you very much. Just one last thing I wanted to ask you about. So at VICTA, we when we can, we do lots of traveling around the UK and mostly around Europe, around the world when possible. And we come across a range of different experiences at airports and at museums and activity centres and so on. But part of what you do outside of your work is a YouTube series called Planes, Trains and Canes. And I've watched a few of those videos now, and just as from my own experience of taking a group around with me, and I sort of take a group of maybe sort of 10 to 12 young adults around when we go places. It's just following you as an individual going around and sort of what you come up against or the support you get, and vice versa when you're in different locations around the world. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that YouTube series? Because I think for a lot of our young adults that have been on trips with us, some of the experiences you've been through will definitely resonate.
I mean, I definitely say check it out. It just shows different interactions, you know, in different parts of the world, and how different people react differently and what kind of adventures I get into. And that it's possible. I think that's another thing is that sometimes we get too scared to try, but it's fun. Go ahead and try. And I watch the series. I go to Johannesburg, London, Istanbul, Singapore, and Tokyo, and I call them like the episodes are called Power of Determination, Power of Choice, Power of Human Connection, Power of Exploration, and Power of Technology. And these are kind of what I call the pillars of freedom, you know, that if you're determined and you have the choice that you want to make, and you connect with other human beings and you explore and use the technology and tools that you have, that you can do it, right? And so different cities kind of really exemplify different attributes of that.
I mean, we were talking just before we started recording. I just watched the Japan video, so I echo that. I fully recommend people to go and watch those videos as well. Dr. Mona Minkara, thank you for joining us. Whereabouts are you in the world, by the way? I don't think we've actually appreciated where you are.
I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.